Welcome, everyone, to the Friday edition, February the 4th, 2022, of the NBA Triple-Double Show, powered by the Predictive Playbook and presented to you by SportsMemo TV. We're so glad you could attend our Friday show. So welcome to the show, Ronald. Ronald is my co-host. He's also the reigning champion over at SportsMemo.com, and what that means is he had the best win percentage and most units made in the NBA for his clients last year. It was well over 80 units in profits. And do yourself a favor and get over to Sports Memo and get on board the great discounted subscriptions for Ronald and myself. And we promise you we'll work very hard for you and we'll make it a lot of fun as well. So, Ronald, let's get right to it here. We're going to look at the first game here. This is the Brooklyn Nets, 6th now, plummeting down the conference standings. Almost in free fall, losers of 6 in a row, which is unimaginable. But given their injuries, it is imaginable. Utah Jazz, same thing. They're 3-7 straight up over the last 10, as are the Nets. The Nets are 4-6 against the spread over the last 10, 4-6 over under. And the Jazz have lost 4 consecutive to the number. 3-7, as I said, straight up over the last 10, 5-5 over under. Utah is 10 games over 500. Despite these losing ways, they're 4.5-point home favorites against Brooklyn, who's trying not to go 0-5 on this 5-game road trip. Brooklyn does have excuses for the losing. LaMarcus Aldridge is out with an ankle injury. He's not expected back till mid-February. Kevin Durant is out till at least late February. Joe Harris has been out for a while now. He's scheduled to be back late February, recovering from a severe ankle sprain. In fact, he had arthroscopic surgery on his left ankle. So he's going to miss at least another 4 weeks of his 4 to 8 week period on the injured list. And Paul Millsap is unhappy and just wants to get the heck out of Brooklyn and playing for another team. It just sounds like it's a dysfunctional situation right now for Brooklyn. Utah is without Rudy Gobert, and it's showing. And he means as much to that team as Joel Embiid means to the Sixers. So where do you see an opportunity here? Because I am truly, honestly on the fence here whether to back either one of these teams.
Yeah, no, I agree. Both of these teams have been equally bad lately. But the difference here is the Jazz were able to actually get a win in the last 6 games. Nets have lost 6 straight, failed to cover in 5 of those. This is going to be their 4th straight road game and 3rd game in 4 nights. So fatigue could be an issue here for an already shorthanded squad. Like you mentioned, Durant, Aldridge, Millsap, and Joe Harris are all out. During the 6-game losing streak, Brooklyn is 29th in the league in defensive rating and are giving up over 218 points per game. That's an issue here, especially with the Jazz coming with Donovan Mitchell back. He was cleared from concussion protocol. I know they're finally coming off a win after losing 5 straight games. And in the last 6 games, they're actually in the bottom 10 in offensive and defensive rating. But, Donovan Mitchell is a big boost here. He's probably not as big of an impact as Gobert is to the squad, but both their offensive and defensive rating do improve by close to 5 points each with Mitchell back in the lineup. So that is a big boost. Brooklyn's current form is just not good right now, and this is also not a good scheduling spot. So for me, I'm leaning towards the Jazz here.
Yeah, I can see why you would be. I certainly wouldn't want to lose money on either team given their situation, but if I'm going to back a team, it has to be Utah for the reasons you said. I'm leaning a little bit over the total here, just based on the fact that you said the 3rd game in 5 nights and the 3rd consecutive road game of this 5-game road trip. So I think fatigue will be an issue, and I think that does portend to an over result. Brooklyn is 28-14 when facing teams that are allowing less than 108 points per game in games played over the last 2 seasons. Utah is 36-20 when playing against a team with a winning record over the last 2 seasons, and that's an over record. And Utah is also 56-42 to the over, facing passing teams that are averaging 23 or more assists per game over the last 2 seasons. And that's one thing that Brooklyn still does well. They do move the ball around, and they get a lot of field goals made with an assist included. So I'm going to lean over for now, and you're leaning Utah, I believe, right?
Yeah.
All right, that's game number one. Now, game number two gets a little more interesting, I guess. We have the Philadelphia 76ers coming off a shocking defeat to the Washington Wizards in a game I just couldn't see them losing.
Yeah.
So I was definitely wrong on that one. But the 76ers are still 7-3 straight up. They're 5-5 against the number 4 and 6 over under. And they've been alternating ATS wins and losses. So they last 10 they've gone ATS win, ATS loss, ATS win. They keep going back and forth, and they haven't won or lost 2 consecutive against the spread in quite a while now. So they're coming off the ATS loss. I would think I got to lean again on the Sixers here. They're actually getting 1.5 points on the road against Dallas. As long as they're at pick'em or the dog, I'm definitely already leaning that way. Mm-hmm. Porzingis is out for Dallas, and it would have been fun to see that matchup with Embiid, being guarded by Porzingis. I think personally, my observation would have been it would have been a joke. Nobody's defending Embiid right now. When he wants to go to the rim, it's really just get out of my way, and it's very successful. He's averaging 36 points per game and 12 rebounds over the last 9 games. And that's, kind of like Moses Malone did during the 80s. And for you younger people out there in the audience, if you don't know who Moses Malone is, just look him up on Sports Reference or another sports site, because he was quite the player. And I'm putting Embiid in some really, really good company by mentioning his name. But what do you see as a possible best bet opportunity here, Ronald?
Yeah, like you mentioned, the Sixers are coming off that terrible loss to the Wizards without Bradley Beal. And they've been doing well off losses lately. They've won and covered their last 5 games off a loss. They're 9-4 against the spread and 10-3 to the under in road dog situations. And like you mentioned, they're 1.5 point dogs in this one. In those games, the Sixers are averaging under 102.7 points per game and allowing 104.6 points per game. So I think the number is pretty tight here, but you can see that's only about 207 points right there. And the total today, I think it's around 2. It opened at 210. Yep. The Mavs have been a strong under team this season, especially at home against teams with a winning record like the Sixers do. They take these games seriously and turn up the defense. They're 12-3 to the under in those situations, scoring 104.7 points per game while allowing 101.1 points per game in those situations. To me, most signs are pointing to the under in this game. Both teams are playing an extremely slow pace. Both are in the bottom 5 in the league in pace this season. Defensively, the Sixers are 3rd in the league in defensive rating in the last 5 games. And the Mavs are struggling offensively without Porzingis and Hardaway. And that's why they lost the last 2 games against some of the weaker teams. With those 2 guys out, it makes me lean towards the Sixers as well. But definitely, I do like the under here.
And I'm with you on the under. I think it makes total sense that this game plays under. Backing that opinion, we have Dallas is 12-3 to the under when playing at home and playing against a team with a winning record this season. They are also 33-19 in home games, facing good passing teams, averaging 23 or more assists per game, which the Sixers are. Philadelphia is 17-7 under when playing against a team with a winning record this season, and 16-6 in road games, facing teams that are attempting 24 or fewer free throws per game in the second half of each of the last 2 seasons. Let's move over to the last game here, and this is another head scratcher. We have it really is. The Trailblazers are looking to avenge a Monday loss to the Thunder. I have a written article with detailed analytics and matchup analysis over on SportsMemo News, so make sure you check that out, folks. But, I just cannot believe Oklahoma City has only won 3 games consecutively once this year, and that was back on December 18th. They have won 2 in a row now, almost out of nowhere. They were 13-point underdogs on the road and defeated the Dallas Mavericks, who, as we just mentioned, are taking on the 76ers tonight. In this matchup, the Trailblazers have revenge, but does it mean anything? I don't think it does, because this team was already, a preseason. They're looking at a deep run in the playoffs. They had massive injuries to their superstars, and it looks, I never like to say this about any team or athlete, that they're just playing out the schedule. But the way they played in that last game against the Thunder this past Monday, they scored 31 points in the first quarter. So everything's looking pretty good. But from then on, they scored 16, 24, and 20. They scored 34 in the second half against the Thunder. And that makes me scratch my head quite a bit. So, initially here, Ronald, I'm going to lean on the Thunder, but I'm interested to know what you think of this matchup.
Yeah, this one's a tough one. Especially for the Thunder here. One of my buddies, Austin Wang, he sent me a message yesterday about the travel issues out of Dallas for them because of the weather out there. That's something that could affect their game mentally, especially because these guys get into rhythm when they do the travel, and when they don't leave when they're supposed to and get to their destination later than they're supposed to, it really messes with their rhythm there. And then they're coming off a high, beating the Mavericks outright in overtime, so that could be a sort of a letdown spot right there. And they're also playing their first game of back-to-back road games as well. Situationally, I think this is a tough spot to back the Thunder, even though they've been great covering on the road this season. Blazers, on the other hand, they're on a 3-game losing streak, and this is their first game back home off a 4-game road trip. And this is sort of a bad spot for them too. This is the first game of back home games for them. They got the Bucks tomorrow in town, so a possible look ahead. But at the same time, one thing to think about here, even though they're 21-31 on the season, somehow they're only 5 games behind in 8th place in the Western Conference standings. So they do still have a shot, to make the playoffs this late in the season. So it's possible they don't really make this a look-ahead spot because it's an important win for them. I do think that the Thunder travel issues might be affecting them here, and along with the letdown spot, could be enough to fade the Thunder here. The one thing to worry about, though, is 7.5, I think is the line here, right? 7.5.
Yep.
I think it's going to be pretty tight. It's really tough to back a Blazers team with that type of, large line there against anybody. So I'm really torn here. But to me, I think I would lean towards the Blazers.
That's interesting. I have 2 angles I'm going to throw out there. So if you're listening and you already like the Thunder, and I'm glad you did give a shout out to Austin Wang. He's a good friend of both of ours. We need to get him on a show is what we need to do. We need to get him on Manny's Pub again, and that would be a blast. But that's great information about the travel, because you're absolutely right. Then when they're used to a routine and that routine gets unsettled and you're sitting on the tarmac, or you have to go get de-iced in order to take off, it does disrupt the flow. It makes it tough. Think about it. You fly in a jet from Oklahoma City to Portland, and imagine yourself getting off that jet, and then say 4 hours later you got to be on the court at your shoot around.
Yeah,
it's a grind, and a lot of fans don't really understand how that happens. It is a real physical grind for these guys at times. But supporting Portland, there's a good one here for 71% winners over the last 5 seasons, and play on favorites after that favorite has gone under the total by 30 or more total points in their last 3 games, and is just a modest losing team with a win percentage between 40 and 49% on the season. And with that team playing a losing record team, which the Thunder obviously are, that's gone 70-26, 71% winners last 5 seasons. That supports Portland. However, for those that like the Thunder, and that 7.5, that's what keeps me off of Portland. But then I think the travel, and then I get off of Oklahoma City. So I might pass on this game, but nevertheless, supporting Oklahoma City is you're going to play on road underdogs of 3.5 to 9.5 points, and a team that is just absolutely ice cold. They've lost 15 or more of their last 20 games straight up, and they're facing an opponent that has lost 4 or 5 of their last 6 games. So we have 2 teams struggling, but the one, Oklahoma City, that is the more struggling team, comes out 48-19 with 1 push for 72% winners over the last 5 seasons. So I don't know after saying those two things, Ron, I'm ready to just flip a coin and put pizza money on it, maybe. I just have no clue on this matchup, and to be totally honest with everyone. Let's see if we can come up with a best bet or two for the show. I think the under in the Sixers game, and I'll mention my in-game strategy. So what I will do with this game is I will bet 50% of my normal bet size pre-flop, which means before the tip-off. And right now it's 211.5 points. Then what I'm going to hope for is that they get out to a pretty fast start, both teams, and all of a sudden you see a 216.5. I'll add the other 50% at 216.5. So that's my personal best bet for the show. And I'll turn it over to Ronald for his thoughts.
No, I agree with you. I think out of all the games that we mentioned, that Sixers Mavs is where we agree. I think the under is the play there.
All right. Well, there you have it. We are on the under tonight as the show best bet in the Philadelphia 76ers visit to the Dallas Mavericks. And hopefully the Sixers will have safe travels and won't get held up in Philly. I don't know what the answer is to that, but it just went into my head that they are flying into Dallas, which is not good weather conditions right now, folks.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, thank you for your time, Ronald. Thanks to everyone for watching this show. And on behalf of SportsMemo TV and the Predictive Playbook platform of shows, always remember, bet with your head, not over it, and may all the wins be yours.